Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff. So today we're supposed to have Michael McKee showing up in court at an extradition hearing in Rockford, Illinois. So today in Rockford, Illinois, Michael David McKee is going to be brought into court, not for a full trial, not for evidence, not for witnesses, but for something that can decide how fast this case moves. He's going to be brought into court for an extradition hearing. The question in that courtroom is simple. Will he fight being sent back to Ohio, or will he waive extradition and get transported quickly to face the charges? So, welcome to Police Off the Cuff. We're covering the court appearance in Rockford, Illinois, where Michael David McKee, 39, the accused, is going to appear in Winnebago County as extradition proceedings begin to send him back to Franklin County, Ohio, where the homicides occurred. Let's break down what this hearing is, what can and can't happen in that courtroom, and what the next legal steps look like. McKee was arrested in Rockford, Illinois, and held in Winnebago County, Ohio. Authorities are seeking his return to face charges connected to the killings of Monique Tepe and Dr. Spencer Tepe, who were found shot to death inside their Columbus home on December 30th, 2025. Important point. Illinois isn't trying the murder case. Illinois is basically the handoff state. The purpose is confirm identity, confirm paperwork, and set the path for transport back to Ohio. So, according to reporting citing Franklin County court records, McKee is charged in Ohio with 2 counts of aggravated murder with premeditation. So when you hear extradition hearing, understand the Illinois judge isn't weighing guilt or innocence. The Illinois judge is addressing the legal mechanics of returning him to Ohio, where those charges are pending. Quick reminder, if you're not looking for real crime insight, not YouTube theories, this channel is different. I'm a retired NYPD Sergeant, and on Police Off the Cuff, we analyze cases the way cops and prosecutors do. What matters, what doesn't, and what internet gets wrong. If that's the perspective you want, subscribe now, because this isn't entertainment, it's experience. So, folks, as soon as this hearing in regards to this man, Michael McKee, as soon as it comes on, we will go live with it. But right now, we are just waiting his appearance in court. And as you know, this is not a guilt or innocence thing. It's for the judge to determine when to send him back, or how. If he waives extradition, they can just send him back to Ohio basically immediately. If he fights extradition, that's another case. And some of the things that we want to know about this case, of course, is, did he make a statement? When he was arrested, did he make a statement to Columbus, Ohio Homicide Unit? Or did he invoke counsel and refuse to speak? Very important, very, very important. What type of evidence did they recover from him? I would imagine that numerous search warrants must have been served on this person, right? Numerous search warrants. And, one of the things that I've mentioned in previous episodes is this document here, the complaint report, where we found out very recently that the time of occurrence of these murders, of course, was December 30th, 2025. But according to the Columbus, Ohio police, they narrowed it down. They have a time of occurrence as 3:52 a.m. So when we initially had all those other times that everyone was speaking about, 12 midnight to 0900 in the morning, those simply were not correct. And then at some point, the police in Ohio, either the Columbus, Ohio Homicide Unit, determined that the time of occurrence was 03:52 in the morning, 3:52 a.m. And we know now that, based on evidence, that they tied a vehicle to Michael McKee, a vehicle that showed up before the murders, and a vehicle that left after the murders. And they were able to, someone is telling me in the chat, Lisa Smith, the hearing will not be live. Camera is in court, but not allowed to show live. When hearing is over, the feed can be shown. Lisa Smith, 8554, thank you very much. I was unaware of that, but that would still be great information. I think it's still important to cover this case of the extradition hearing and what it in fact means from a perspective of this accused, Michael McKee, the ex-husband of Monique Tepe, what it means to him. And, everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but many people in the chat always want to hear that this person is innocent till proven guilty. And yeah, okay, he's innocent till proven guilty. Let's see what's going to happen, right? Is he going to get extradited today? Is he going to fight extradition? All of these things are what has to be determined. And these two beautiful people, Spencer and Monique Tepe, lost their lives over this. So what is the extradition hearing to this individual, Michael McKee, about? Identity and paperwork. The court verifies who the person is and that there's a valid out-of-state warrant request, which undoubtedly there is an out-of-state warrant. I think that's it right there. Warrant issued, 1/10/2026. A supporting affidavit for determination of probable cause filed. Fingerprints required, an image, of course, of the defendant. And there it is right there. That's his booking document, right? The Michael David McKee, 39 years old, height 6'1", weight 200 pounds, white, hazel eyes, brown hair. Next court appearance, January 12th at 1:30. It's already past that, but apparently we will find courts never promptly right on time, ever, right? So the big decision here is to waive extradition, meaning the defendant will not fight being sent back. That usually speeds up the transport, or contest extradition, which can slow the process because paperwork and executive warrants may be involved. The AP's reporting describes the proceeding as one that could result in him being returned to Ohio from the Illinois jail where he's being held. What will we not see today? You're not going to see witnesses testifying about the murder, a discussion of forensic evidence. We're not going to hear about that from the court. Alibis, motives, the timelines litigated, none of that stuff. That Ohio's job is an Ohio court. One thing that I think could be potentially scary to many people is the consideration of bail. And when we hear that, we're like, bail in a double murder? But I think that our society is so crazy that there's very few restrictions on bail anymore. For certain offenses, it used to be not even a thing. Now it is a thing with bail reform in several states. So can Michael McKee get bailed for this? Let's not forget that bail is just supposed to ensure that you return to court for your next court date. It's not supposed to be punitive. In essence, keep you in jail during the time that the court is awaiting for another court date. From the chat at Surviving to Thriving, and now I find out Dr. McKee was in valedictorian of his class in high school at Zanesville, Ohio. Yet another fact that wasn't fact-checked until later. His GPA was up there, but not valedictorian. So Surviving to Thriving, we know he's a very smart man, but that I don't think has that much to do with this case. At USMC, good to see you in the chat. Campen Double Pup, police off the cuff. Hello, sir. Hi to everyone else in the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So just talking about what it means to be extraditing and what this case means as far as Michael McKee getting extradited in this case. And obviously we're all thrilled that on the 10th of January, he was arrested and the case proceeded. And we all spoke about how great Columbus, Ohio homicide unit was. So let's talk about bail. In extradition situations, defendants are commonly held on an out-of-state hold while the demanding state, which is Ohio, completes the steps to take custody. The AP's reporting notes he was jailed in Winnebago County pending the extradition proceeding. So this is not a normal Illinois bond hearing or an Illinois criminal case. The judge's focus is whether he's being held for transfer, not whether he should be released back into the community. If bail comes up at all, it's usually discussed in the context of out-of-state hold, whether extradition is being waived, and the administrative timeline to surrender him. Everyone wants to know, does Michael McKee have counsel? And I would say that there's almost no doubt that he has counsel here. At Diane's 2652, hey, Sergeant, chat, thanks for covering live. So grateful for all you do. Glad I could join. God bless. So thank you at Diane's 2652. Jacqueline Ha, good to see you, Jacqueline. Hello all, hello all. At Polly 6336, because I think he has control issues. I don't think he will agree to extradition. Just a guess. Well, we will see. We will absolutely see. So, folks, you know something? Hold on to your hats. Hold on to your loved ones. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone. The police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
Folks, I would like to just remind everyone that this show, Police Off the Cuff, is sponsored by FanDuel on the Believe Network. They pay us money to do this commercial, so they are sponsoring the Police Off the Cuff podcast. So if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, share, like, and make lots of comments. That helps our show grow, and it helps our algorithm. Counsel. Does Michael McKee have counsel? And I would say once the detectives informed him that he was going to be arrested, someone blessings for the body. I didn't see your comment, but I'll look for it. Oh, here we go. Blessings for the body. I was wondering about the man who went into the house and called police that he was dead. How did he get into the house? Do you think this guy knew her ex-husband? How did he get into the house? You know, at Blessings for the Body, I don't know. The police have not officially released, if they in fact know, how Michael McKee entered the house. The other thing is, I don't specifically know from verified information from authorities how the friends of Monique and Spencer Tepe entered the house to discover the crime scene and to recall the police to the scene in order to get them back there. So we don't, in fact, know any of that stuff. Not officially. I believe we will find that out, but I don't think right now we know it. At Polly 6336, he would be a flight risk. No. At Polly 6336, I believe he would be, you know. But one of the things the court would do is they would probably, if they did bail him, they might require an electronic monitoring. They may require house arrest, all of those things. So, and that's, I believe he won't get bail, period. I think that he's going to be remanded. That's just my opinion. Could be wrong. At Peter McKenda 5039, if you claim a man to be smart by reason of his education, who throws away all he has ever accomplished by means of committing an act of selfless criminality, how smart is that? At Peter McKenda 5039, you know something? You're right. But, you know, isn't intelligence, just the ability to learn. Not It's not testing your decision making, which obviously Michael McKee's decision making was extremely way off, right? Not even remotely uh, what a normal person would do. So I don't know where I'm getting that sound right now, but let me play this. Um, let me put this video up on the screen. There we go. Oh, this is just the we have there we go. That was just, court TV was playing, but uh, it's not live now, the court I was under the assumption that we were going to go live, but let's go back to some of the, investigatory, um, things we need to know about this case in order to be prepared to understand the extradition, the proceedings, and all of those things. Uh, this here is from WSYZ ABC News 6, a local station.
Granted the divorce on grounds the parties were incompatible.
There's a prior relationship and divorce history and some disputes, but those are not elements of murder.
In fact, Columbus police have not yet released a motive, posting on social media as to not compromise the active and ongoing investigation.
It's a big jump from a doctor in Illinois, surgeon in Illinois, driving across state lines like this to commit double murder and then drive back.
Columbus police releasing this surveillance video Monday, showing a person in a dark hoodie walking through the alley near the Tepe home between 2 and 5 a.m. The court documents we obtained show the time of the killings as 3:52 a.m. However, CPD has not confirmed if McKee is the person in this video. These court documents read the suspect was traced through a car that arrived just before and left just after the murders. That car linked to McKee. Detectives found it in Rockford, Illinois, and say it was in his possession both before and after their deaths.
Did he confess? Are there any eyewitnesses?
Koffel reminding us the state has to prove McKee is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
And then forensic extraction of the cell phone devices. What type of communication was going on with the ex-wife and the suspect?
When you have a high-profile case such as this, does that pose any problems or challenges for the prosecutor's office or these coordinating agencies as they look to bring him back to Ohio?
There's a lot that the public and the prosecutors, and especially the investigators, are going to need to tighten up any unexplained gaps, and then the forensic scene. So I think it's a good exercise for everyone just to pump the brakes here a little bit.
So, yeah, an amazing thing that no one really knew, of course, was the evidence that detectives have in regards to the car. No one knew about that car. No one knew about the fact that the car was parked on the block or close by the crime scene before the murders and then left shortly after the murders. So all of those things are so important. And we're really relatively new finding out about all of those things. And the investigation, when we all watch that video, the person of interest, which I have in a still, because it's always coming up. And when we saw it, and even on this still, it's not so easy to see, but sort of a big hulking man dressed in what appears to be a black jacket, a hoodie. His face is covered. He's looking down. He's wearing sort of light pants, possibly jeans, walking, and he has a certain gait. But many people have even mentioned, well, what does that gait mean when you're walking on ice? Because people all walk sort of um, daintily when you're walking across ice because you don't want to slip on your butt, obviously, right? But when that video was put out there by the police, no doubt, did they consider that someone may identify this man? And when we talk about what comes first, the chicken or the egg, when they saw that car that was inexplicably there before the murders and then left afterwards, I would imagine they immediately ran the plate of that car, right? Ran the plate to find out, A, who it was registered to, and if in fact it was a rental car, which has not been confirmed again. If it was a rental car, determine who rented that car. Because either way, they would need a search warrant for that car to process that car. Could the firearm have still been in that car? That 9mm semi-automatic. The gun is a huge, huge piece of evidence, of course, because we understand that, again, 9mm, at least 3 9mm casings were discovered in the crime scene. And it's been reported, again, unconfirmed by the police, that Monique was shot once in the chest and Spencer was shot twice. So that would confirm the fact that there are 2 spent shells. And on this shell, this is showing an extraction mark. And I've explained on numerous shows that these marks that are on the spent casings can be traced, if you recover the firearm, exactly as coming from the firearm that was used in this crime, if they in fact recover that firearm. And that would be extremely, extremely powerful evidence. But up until this point, we don't know if they've ever recovered the firearm. Good questions, right? Another questions, again, we spoke about, does he have an attorney? And as of January 12th, they're saying no attorney is listed. However, I do not believe that a judge would allow him to appear at an extradition hearing without an attorney, even if one is appointed for him. For example, I think he probably has the means to pay for a private attorney, but they could have a legal aid attorney do the extradition hearing until he, in fact, if he does, in fact, want to hire a private attorney. Because usually you only get legal aid if you're indigent, you don't have the money to pay for your own counsel. How about statements made? When the police showed up and went to arrest Michael McKee, did he make any statements? Even if they were self-serving statements that tried to get him out of hot water, did he say anything, or did he act surprised? And when we think about it right away, call at Carly Beans 22. Most places have a public defender there for instances like this to give you advice. Carly, thank you. I think I just alluded to that. Yeah, but thank you for saying that. Yeah, because they're not going to let him have the extradition hearing without counsel. And if he doesn't have counsel, they would have to reschedule the extradition hearing because he's not going to be able to represent himself at an extradition hearing. And I don't believe an attorney would allow him to waive extradition without consulting with counsel. At Diane's in the chat, at Diane's 2652, wonder if he was trying to communicate with her and or stalking her all these years. You know, at Diane's 2652, that is part of the victimology. And they would have probably asked family members that. What did she have any contact with Michael McKee, her ex-husband? Was he stalking her? Was he giving her any kind of problems? Perhaps they would know that. And let's not forget, as a matter of course, the police would be doing search warrants on the telephones of Spencer Tepe and Monique Tepe, as well as Michael McKee. Search warrants on their cell phones to see, again, calls, text messages, emails coming from perhaps Michael McKee to Monique Tepe's phone, correspondence they may have had. All of those things include, and of course, including GPS. Where was the phone at a specific time? How about, we talk about statements made. Again, I don't know if he would have waived right away. If you're looking for public statements connected to this court moment, the clearest reported statement so far is from the victim's family. AP reports the family said the arrest was an important step toward justice and that they trust the justice system to hold the person accountable, adding that they are focused on protecting and surrounding the children the couple left behind. That's the public-facing message: grief, justice, and protecting the children, while the legal process begins moving the defendant back to Ohio. As for a statement by McKee in court, major outlets covering the lead up described the hearing and the extradition purpose, but did not publish detailed quotes from him in the material we have available now. Why did this case blow up nationally? And I think, this case right out of the box became a national trending case because it was, in essence, it was a whodunit, although the Columbus, Ohio homicide unit solved it rather quickly, 11 days. I think that's pretty damn quick. If you talk to the mainstream media, they think it's too long. I think it's pretty damn quick. And kudos to them. They did a fantastic job. And you shine the light on a great police department, a great investigators. And it's just that I think that in today's world of true crime, of instant gratification with everything, the internet, people, the public, are spoiled. And, the CSI effect, when you see on TV police doing things that real police are incapable of doing because the technology is not up to speed. In a 60-minute show with 20 minutes of commercials, they solve the murder in 40 minutes, So the public gets that CSI effect, and they believe that, again, police can do unbelievable. That easy button is there to press at all times. God bless us, everyone. I heard there's some pending malpractice lawsuit in Nevada, but I heard it's same channel that said he was valedictorian married to her. So some of those things aren't really all that important, I don't think. Jessica Gregg, he waived extradition. Are we getting that? It's not live. I don't think it's not on the screen yet. But if he did waive extradition, that saves the court from doing all kinds of legal motions and fighting him about that. So then he'll be being brought back to Columbus, Ohio to answer to these charges. So that's a good thing because now this case will proceed. According to ABC News at Lady Jane C., thank you at Lady Jane, Michael McKee waived his right to an extradition hearing and is expected to return to Franklin County where the murders of Spencer and Monique Tepe occurred. It was in December 30th. Even though it was last month, it was only 13 days ago, right? So happened on the 30th, right? And 31 days in December, so that's 13 days ago that happened. So he waives extradition. He's going to be brought back. He's going to be brought back to Ohio to answer for these charges. We don't know whether he has counsel. I think I would almost guarantee that we don't know who his counsel is. We don't know how he's going to be defended, by what tactic his defense is going to take in this case. I'll tell you one thing that hurts this case a lot, and I don't criticize the people that did it, the friends that got into the house and discovered the crime scene. That will be brought up by a defense attorney to show that the friends, in fact, they contaminated the crime scene. And how do we know they didn't take the gun out or they didn't plant evidence? That's a favorite thing of defense attorneys, right? How do we know they didn't plant evidence or they weren't involved in a conspiracy to do this? So all of those things, even though, as I said, I do not blame those friends for going in, especially when they heard the children crying. That was absolutely the right thing to do. At Daisy Q, if cameras were all around 360 degrees, wouldn't that tell? Well, Daisy Q, not all of the video from the cameras all over the place perhaps was usable. Not all the video, not all the cameras caught the shots that they needed that, were important to try this case, that showed things of an evidentiary matter, So whatever clever from the chat, if he broke in, then they can seek DP because it's capital murder. Well, I think even if you got in surreptitiously, even if you got in through trickery, that still makes that a burglary, first degree, because he's armed with a firearm. A burglary, folks, just the definition is knowingly and unlawfully enter or remaining in a building with intent to commit a crime therein. And then there's aggravating factors. Is it armed with a deadly weapon or dangerous instrument, causes a serious physical injury to a non-participant, uses or displays a firearm during it. And what's the last aggravating factor? I used to know all of these. Display is what appears to be a gun. So all of those things can raise it to a capital murder. This is from News Nation speaking about this case before even this hearing.
Man charged with murdering an Ohio dentist and his wife in their home with their young kids inside. Just last month, he's set to face a judge today. Police arrested Chicago doctor Michael McKee over the weekend after a 10-day manhunt. Investigators say he shot and killed his ex-wife and her husband. News Nation's Marcus Espinoza is following the case and all these new developments this morning. And Marcus, I just can't get over how sad this is. What are we expecting in court today? And have police said anything about a motive?
Hey, Marky, good morning. Sad really is the word. This is tragic for the families involved here. And then just a bizarre set of circumstances there. And you mentioned McKee is going to appear in court today in Rockford, Illinois, some 450 miles away from where police are accusing him of this double murder here. That's really tragic and just disturbing when you take a look at the details. He's now facing 2 counts of murder. You mentioned it. Michael David McKee here, Monique's ex-husband and a Chicago vascular surgeon, is now facing those charges. Investigators say they zeroed in on McKee Saturday after home surveillance video captured a man walking near the Tepe's home around the time of the murders, and that led them to a car found in Rockville. They say that belongs to McKee. Police haven't released a motive yet that you asked about there, Marky, but say McKee doesn't have a criminal record. The couple was found dead in their Columbus home almost 2 weeks ago. Their 2 children, just 4 and 1 years old, were home at that time, but were not physically harmed. And while the suspect's motive remains unproven, former FBI special agent and News Nation law and justice contributor Jennifer Coffinduffer suggests emotions and resentment really could have played a role here.
This divorce happened about 9 years ago. They were married for such a brief time, only 7 months. And so that is strange, but I think it was a deep-seated resentment and hate.
So Michael here and Monique, they married back in 2015 and then divorced in 2017, but they separated just 7 months into the marriage to begin with here. So we're talking about years ago for potential resentment to lead to something like this. Again, police have charged him with 2 counts of murder. No word yet on when he'll make his way back to Ohio, but he will appear in court in Rockford later today.
Yeah, and according to the court records, it didn't seem like there was any animosity between the two either. So a lot to come here. Marcus, thank you. Let me now.
Thank you. So, according to Truth and Melody in the chat, and I'll put it up on the screen, not guilty was his plea. Say it. I just did. He pled not guilty. And as I will also say, because I'm always accused of not saying this, is that he's innocent till proven guilty. No matter how much we may think he's guilty, he is allowed through our system the presumption of innocence, right? So he's presumed innocent. There's, we know again, so just to recap, he pled not guilty in court today, apparently. He waived extradition. So he may be brought back to Ohio as early as today. So once he's approved for that, he will move back to Franklin County, Ohio, to face the charges. And in the first appearance in Ohio, what we will see, of course, is formal advisement of charges, counsel solidified, retained, or appointed, and eventually bond arguments under Ohio law, future court dates, any updated charging language. Right now, the reporting we're relying on cites 2 counts of aggravated murder with premeditation. So today in the Rockford court, the headline isn't evidence, it's movement. The case is shifting from investigation headlines to courtroom procedure. Extradition may sound boring, but it's the gate that determines how fast Ohio can put this defendant in front of an Ohio judge to answer for 2 aggravated murder charges. And our promise here is simple. We'll stick to what's verified, track what the courts actually do, and explain what it means step by step. So it just, this case, just from the very beginning, was a heartbreaker, and the thing that all of us sort of, when we saw, the Columbus, Ohio police, their detectives, their chiefs, they kept everything extremely close to the vest. And if you ask me, that is the sign of huge, huge professionalism, that they did that they kept what they had quiet. Because when you release too much to the media, to the public, you can really hurt the case. And they released basically nothing. Some of the things that got out there were, in fact, leaked. They were leaked to the they were leaked to the press and to the media and to the people. So they did a fantastic job. And Michael Geary is in the chat, and he's using the acronym from Dr. Debbie Goodman, from a professor of criminology from St. Thomas University in Miami. And she always uses the acronym for murder, JAR: jealousy, anger, and revenge. And certainly at least one of those, it's actually revenge, Mike, not rage, or jealousy, anger, and revenge. At least 2 of those, I think, qualify in this case, that he was jealous and he was angry, and he had to revenge his jealousy and his anger for some reason. I don't know why that was, but he absolutely did that. Jealousy, anger, and revenge. And that's what he in fact did. And Professor Geary, if you can hear me, I didn't know you were available today. I'm going to send you a link right now. And if you want to jump on the show, you're very welcome to do so, my friend. Let me just set up the email and I'll send it right to you, and you can jump in. I always like to have Mike Geary on, but I don't want to ruin his life by calling him every day and say, we're doing a show right now. So Mike, you have the You have the link right now, and if you want to come on, you're very, very welcome. So today, a little bit anticlimactic in a way. That we wanted to see him in court. We wanted to see him in the hearing, but apparently he has pled not guilty. And that's according to the chat, of course. He's pled not guilty. Look how fast I brought Mike Geary in here.
Hey guys.
Wow, Mike, you're you're a little blurry right now, though.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to take you
yeah.
off. Come back on. I don't know what he did. Maybe his lighting wasn't right, but he was a little blurry. Philly boy, I think there's something more to it than just jealousy, anger, and rage. I think something must have set him off. There had to be a circumstance that set him into a murderous rage. Philly boy, you know something? You could be right. I think that here we go. Here's Professor Geary back.
Hey, Bill. Good
How you
afternoon.
doing, Mike? So, Mike, really, I was going to cover live I thought they were supposed to have the extradition hearing live, but they never played it live, and they never played it at all. But I'm hearing from the chat that he pled not guilty and he waived extradition. So what is your opinion on someone who waives extradition? Is that confidence that they think they can beat this case? What is that?
Bill, I think it might not be that. I think it may be that the defense, who hasn't had this job very long, just 36 hours, 48 hours, the defense may not see any real grounds. You have to have certain grounds, like there's no probable cause. There was some sort of clerical error, but we didn't even see that whatsoever in anything. This is very simple. So I think the defense is not even going to try to make some sort of silly argument. They're just going to take their chances, in Ohio court. And I think that's better for everybody, because you're going to lose the extradition case anyway, the challenge. So just get into court, get the discovery as fast as you can, get this on the calendar and start prepping your case. And I think that's a professionalism just demonstrated by the local attorney. He'll probably have a very different attorney in Ohio, but right now I think the Illinois attorney was smart to do that.
I think he may have just had legal aid representing him.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Maybe he didn't appoint an attorney. One of the things I really wanted to know too, Mike, is did he make a statement when he was arrested? And whether it was a self-serving statement, whatever it was. And in my opinion, I would say he probably invoked counsel right away.
Yes.
I don't think he would have made a statement to the police there. But I have other questions too that all of us that are in this field do. How many search warrants did they do?
Yeah.
Did they do a search warrant on his car? Did they do a search warrant on his apartment? Did they do a search warrant on his locker at work? Did they do a search warrant on his cell phone? Did they do a financial search warrant on his finances?
Right.
All of those things. Well, some of them you can take time because it's something that you would want for the court presentation and not necessarily need right now. But the search warrant on the car, the search warrant on the cell phone, the search warrant of his apartment, immediately. In fact, I saw one little video, a still of an officer sitting on his luxury apartment door, waiting for I don't mean sitting on the door, sitting outside the door, waiting for a search warrant. So obviously, could the gun still be in there? Yeah, there's a very good chance. Blessings. Here we go. At Blessings for the Body. Billy, I want to thank you for your service, keeping us safe. I know you're retired now. You deserve it. Thank you so much for keeping us updated and explaining all of this to us. Sometimes I like to talk about what some people say in the chat, and 95%, 99% of the comments in the chat to us since we've been covering this case have been positive. But some guy who I blocked, I sent him into cyberspace forever, said, it's like watching an old age home conversation, watching our show. I mean, that's obviously a troll that, has no life, that he's going to say something like that, because I think some of the information and even the education we gave during the show was invaluable. I think we taught people a lot of things, whether it was about search warrants, whether it was about IBIS, the Integrated Ballistics Identification System, ballistics to spent shells and how they can identify them, DNA on the side of the case, all of those things, the video, the victimology. We're teachers, Mike, and not only are we experienced cops and we came from this field, but I think we teach a lot to our audience. And when some idiot like that, and I don't like to dwell on the negative, but when someone's like that says something like that, I just have to point it out so you folks in the chat know what we're dealing with. And I just want to mention one other thing. We are very close, and I've worked, and Mike's worked, not as long as me on this, of course. I've been in the bed a little more than 6 years doing this podcast. We have 100,000 subscribers in our view, and it's going to happen very, very soon. And it's because of all of you guys. And I want to thank Kim Alliston, tirelessly working, Simi Sharp, a new moderator, but doing a fantastic job. And these guys encourage us, Carol Grayston. Do you guys have, there's ups and downs in this. You have friends when you first start, and then you get into arguments with people. You're not friends anymore. People help you, then people hinder you. So I just want to thank all of you folks that have been following, and also some of you new subscribers and you new members of Police Off the Cuff. Thank you so much. And I'm going to bring in retired NYPD Detective Phil Grimaldi. He hasn't really worked this case much, but he's a bed of knowledge. Let me bring him in right now. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Billy. Yeah, how you doing, Mike?
Hey.
I saw you were on. I jumped into the chat, and I did have some time to come on and comment. And I don't know, I just get the feel following this case a little bit, Bill, that they're basically saying that there was a pretty good relationship between the ex-husband and the wife there. Something, I think there had to be something that set him off to do such a horrible thing. And he showed definite rage towards the Tepes, and however he spared the children. So and it seems like maybe he had been in the house before, because the house was locked, so perhaps he was let in. There was no break-in or anything like that. So I'm curious to see what the investigation is going to reveal. I'm sure that the extensive interviews done by the Ohio police are going to yield somewhat of a motive, I guess, because you're going to have the people that they interview, friends, relatives, neighbors, giving an idea of what this relationship was like between the ex-husband and the Tepe. So there's going to be something more. I found it a little bit intriguing that he was also in the medical field, that he was a doctor. So the investigation probably has a lot more to play out. I'm glad that they captured him, took him off the street. At this point.
Where do you go there? Okay.
You're off for 1 second. There we go. One of the things that's so intriguing about this case, from us following it from the beginning, is how quiet and how professional the Columbus, Ohio homicide squad was. They wouldn't say a thing. And even though we as content creators, we get a little pissed, like, why don't they say anything? But as police detectives, police investigators, I applaud them, because that just makes your case stronger. When you don't allow the press to steer the investigation, even with them not releasing things, the press was throwing shit into the mix that had nothing to do with anything. And
Billy is so right about that, because there's a lot of times when an investigation is going, too much information is given out. It gives the perpetrator, or in this case, the alleged perpetrator, it gives them some type of information. Perhaps they may come up with, I don't know, an alibi or some type of statement that they could say, or may even make them, invoke counsel. So a lot of times it could stymie investigations. The way that they handle it, I think, is 100% the way all high-profile investigations, or any investigation, should be handled. Certain times you want to use, we talked about it before, Billy, you want to use the press to get a photo out, a video, things of that nature. And I think that the video is really one of the turning points in this case, where they must have asked, friends, relatives, who this is, or perhaps they got a tip on that once that video was released, and they zeroed in on a suspect.
Absolutely. At Ocean 348, brilliant guy, Bill. You're spoiling us, Sergeant Bill. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. At K Bling, trolls love to create drama, chaos, and arguments. You're right,
Yeah.
but there's enough of them out there that just you know,
Gotta ignore them.
we're cops, we're supposed to have thicker skin, they say, but we're still human beings. And when sometimes, you know, when someone hurts your feelings, we cry. And when someone cuts us, we bleed. You know, someone shoots us, we die. All those things happen. We're actually human beings. But I sometimes, you know, I get amused by it. I mean, that comment about, and one of the comments the other night, and I'm just going to mention this. I don't want to be someone, I said, you know, an investigative checklist thing, and this is from the NYPD Detective Bureau, is to always run the plate numbers in the vicinity of a homicide and write them down, and later on run all of them and find out who owns those cars. Someone in the chat says to me, "You're an idiot. What good would that do, you moron?" Right? That's how they solve the case.
Standard operating procedure, Bill. Standard
Yeah.
operating procedure.
Mike, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, Bill, you know, we've done this for a living for over 20 years, and collectively like 75 years, all three of us. So to us, it's, you know, second nature. But some people, I think it's a CSI effect. They think everything is high tech. But a lot of, like, you know, you and Phil have done, even I've done as not as much, but because I was in uniform, but just going around and doing the basics, getting names, getting phone numbers, getting addresses, doing all the basic stuff, and then passing it on to the detectives, you know, that are covering that case, that are catching the case. That's all low tech, but it gets you to where you need to go. So, you know, people always want to talk about DNA, but, you know, the basic stuff gets you the result.
100%. At Carly Beans 22, those license plate readers will catch
Yes.
a perp every time. Carly, the technology is unbelievable, and that keeps us safe, not just from normal everyday criminals, terrorists. They've tracked terrorists in Manhattan coming from Brooklyn, and their route from over the Brooklyn Bridge going back.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've, at some point when they decide to go pick the guy up, they do. But the license plate reader, once they know, oh, this is driven by so-and-so, and we know about him, the license plate reader runs literally thousands of plates in seconds. In seconds. That's the technology. So as well as we said, look, Mike and I, at the earliest onset of this case, we said, this is how this case is going to be solved. And we gave, like, I don't know, maybe a 10 or 15 part explanation as how, and we were exactly right. We said the biggest thing solving this case is going to be the video. The second biggest thing is going to be the victimology, right?
Mm-hmm.
The third biggest thing is going to be the forensic evidence. All of those things we listed, and sure enough, they put out a video of a person of interest that was connected to the car that they found out was registered to Michael McKee, the ex-husband of Monique Tepe, who turns out now is charged with the murders of Monique, right? Monique Tepe and her husband, Spencer Tepe. So not that we want to be, I told you so, but I think we know we've done this. So we know how the work is done. And that's why I also wanted to praise the hell out of the Columbus, Ohio Homicide Squad. They did it. And you know what I found out? Phil, they solved 100 murders last year. They solved, not investigated, they solved. And they had like a
little bit of experience, I'd say.
Yeah, they had like an 80-something% clearance rate in their homicides.
Yeah.
That is outstanding.
I think that we kind of know the way that these investigations go from our own experience and some of the cases we've covered over the last few years. So to point out the obvious, the things like you said, the technology, the canvassing. But with regard to that comment that you were talking about, Billy, when you get to a homicide scene on the street and you take down all the license plate numbers of every car on the block or every car in the vicinity, what it does is it perhaps maybe the perpetrator took a car to the location and then left it there, but also it gives you a list of people that need to be interviewed. Perhaps you're knocking on doors and they say, yeah, that's my car right there. You know that, all right, you already interviewed that person, but maybe there's somebody that pulled up and saw something just before, just after the crime or the initial thing takes place. So the person that said that obviously doesn't know anything about investigation, but just to point that out, I don't even like to really talk about that because that's kind of give some of the tools of the trade, so to speak, that of steps that we take when we do investigation. But the reason for it is clear. Gives you a direction to do some interviews and perhaps locate a witness, locate somebody that may have seen something. So that's why we do that type of stuff. And I'm glad you addressed that, Bill, because it gives me a little bit of, it's replaying in my mind some of the stuff that we did over the years. Every homicide case that happened on the street, we were in that street writing down plate numbers and winding up, like you said, run them and try to interview.
Phil, I don't know if you were still on the NYPD when they did this, but in the DD5 system, which became computerized, and the NYPD is one of the last police departments to actually have their DD5 system, complaint follow-up system, computerized. We were like in the caves hitting two rocks together, making a spark. It was like so antiquated. But right on the DD5, they had what was called the basic dozen. And it was listed the first 12 basic dozen investigative steps, which you must do on every single DD5 in order to close out your case. So we sort of been, the process sort of was shoved down our throat. This is the process. I don't care if that investigative step doesn't apply. Do it anyway.
Do it anyway.
And it was like,
it sounds like a checklist, Billy.
Well, exactly that. It is exactly that. But, sometimes, Phil, detectives would get annoyed and say, I don't need a checklist. I know what I'm doing. But it sort of is a good thing for professionalism, because when a defense attorney is grilling you on the stand and asks you, did you do this? Did you? Well, that's part of the first 12 investigative checklist. It's called the basic dozen. So it sort of gives a professionalism to, and, people can forget to do things, Sometimes, I used to sign the cases. Detectives would hand them back to me, and I would write, do this, and the detective would be like, why do I have to do this? And I'd say, because it's called investigation. That's why you wear a suit and not a uniform, right?
Absolutely. And, Billy, with regard to tips, there have been cases where we had the perpetrator confession, we had evidence, but yet a tip came in and we wanted to still look at that tip, but for the specific reason that you just said, Billy. You're in court. You have a defense attorney grilling you and saying, well, my client confessed and there's all this forensic evidence. However, there's a tip that came in and you guys didn't look at it. Now that creates what? Doubt. Creates doubt in the jury's mind, and it could lead to a possible hung jury or an acquittal, which we don't want, obviously. So with regard to the investigative steps, that particular thing wasn't on DD5s when I was still on the job. However, they were starting to incorporate the DD5 system, which is the complaint follow-up system. Any reports that a detective does, they were going into the computerized stage. However, they hadn't really had that checklist. I don't remember that, but it's good to know that that's something that came on after I left.
Mike, I want you to answer this question. This is from the chat. At Peter McCandum 5039, would you explain why an extradition hearing is necessary? It is obvious that if a crime occurred in Ohio, the trial of the accused should take place in the jurisdiction where the crime occurred. Mike, would you explain that?
Oh, yeah. This happens quite often when you arrest a person in a different city, in a different state, and, from where the crime took place and where the warrant was issued from. You've got a judge in Ohio issuing an arrest warrant. Maybe there's been a grand jury investigation, or maybe the prosecution and the cops went and got an arrest warrant from a judge. Now you got to serve that warrant. That's a legal process. You notify, all the other jurisdictions that you're working with. You've tracked him. He's like an Illinois resident, somewhere outside Chicago. You notify all the local PDs around there. They picked him up. The sheriff department picked him up, and instead of driving him all the way back to Ohio, under our system of law, he will be brought to the nearest criminal court where he was arrested. And so whatever county in Illinois he was arrested in, based on that warrant, he will go to that jail and the next day appear in front of the judge. And by that time, the judge will, you'll get your attorney or prosecutor from Ohio to Illinois. You'll get your lead detective from Ohio to Illinois, and they can answer any question that the judge may have. But it's just one step in a whole lot of process. That's what we've done for a century. Is you bring that person to the local criminal court and have a judge look at the case before that person gets sent away. It's a step that we do. That's all.
I'm going to give you guys these two at eBay 180, and I don't really, I don't know for sure. Bill, how do you think he got in the house? Phil, you have any thoughts on that?
Me, Phil?
Phil, how do you think
my thoughts are this. It's either one of two things in my mind. Either he was let into the house under the pretense of coming to visit or whatever it was, have a conversation, or he produced a gun at the door maybe and forced his way in without making any damage to the door. That's the only two scenarios.
But you know, Phil, there's two different scenarios here. One is that she was afraid of him, and the other one is that, oh no, she got along with him. So until we know that, like, yeah, if he could have made up some excuse, oh listen, I need to talk, I got stuck at a flat tire, whatever, guys, he could have used some lie to get into the house. Or, you know, I'm sure he reconned the house and what he was going to do. And that's one of my favorite words, reconnaissance, because criminals do that too. At K Bling, this is interesting also. I think they determined the time of attack could have been determined by a Ring camera, maybe recording noise from possible gunshots, kids screaming, or the victims. What do you guys think? K Bling, I think you could be 100% correct. And it was just the other day that I found this. And this is the complaint report. And on it, the exact time of occurrence is put in there, 0352. Because prior to that complaint report being made available, we were told that the time where they were looking at was between midnight and 0900 in the morning. And then they narrowed it down to 0200 by 0500. And now, lo and behold, you see on here, 352, a definitive time. Which, what does that mean? Well, one of the things it means, it also, there was a police officer here that took a lot of heat because he went to the wrong house to do the welfare check. And at least the whole community, the press, they were all eviscerating this guy. And his chief actually stood up for him. She said, look, he made a mistake. He did all the right things at the wrong house, which I thought was a little bit fugazi that she said that, but she stood up for him, and I respected that. We always respect in policing, in the police profession, when our bosses stand up for us. And some people that aren't in this profession, they would say, that's a cover-up. No, it's not. You do this kind of work that's very dangerous. You just do this kind of work and you go to work and you don't go home for 4 or 5 days. What other job do you do that? There's camaraderie, there's spirit, and there's loyalty to each other. So if you think it's a cover-up, you go around, you can think that. But we think it's backing up. That's what we like to think of it as police. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, Bill, just going back to what the question was about him getting into the house, I think it could be that there may have been some civility between the two, and he came over really late, and she just said, okay, come on, let's just talk, and let him in. Or he snuck in through a back door. People have commented that maybe they had a dog, and Spencer was an early riser, and he was getting up to travel to work, and maybe he opened up the back door. But on the other hand, though, if it was like really freezing cold that night, would you want to be hiding for a while in the back of somebody's house behind a shed or something, freezing your tuchus off? I'm not so sure. Somehow, it could be that, like Phil said, you know, they may have had some civility there, and she may have said, "Okay, let's just talk one more time. Let's just get this over with." You know, it's hard to tell. We'll know soon enough.
Yeah.
But it's
It
really
could have been such a relationship that maybe he had an access to a key, or he knew where he was hidden, something of that nature. Or perhaps maybe, can you go, we're going to be awake, can you go check on the dog, or, water the plants, one of those things. So anything's really possible. The reason I bring that up is because it's been widely reported there was no forced entry into the house. There was no signs of a forced entry. Now, perhaps when he leaves, a lot of the doors, you just pull it closed and it automatically locks from the, where you can't get it from the outside. I don't know if that was the case in this particular case, or this particular instance. But again, if he had a key, he enters, he does the dirty deed, and then he locks the door on the way out. Or like I said, he pulls it closed. I'm getting that kind of a feel with this, but we don't know, because like Bill said, it's been reported both ways, that there was a friendly relationship and maybe a not so friendly relationship between the parties.
Well, we're looking someone's at Ruby's Gold in the chat is saying the extradition hearing is on at WBNS 10 TV. I'm looking for it. I don't, let me see if I can find it, but
it says it's a YouTube channel, Bill. I don't know if you saw that.
Let me see if it is in fact on right now. I'm not seeing it. Well, let's see. Yeah, it is. There is something live, but I don't believe. Let me see. I'll put it up on the screen. it may be just after it, or that they're not showing it. This is WBNS TV. Let's see what they're saying about this right now.
Yeah, I was keeping a close eye out for any of the Tepe family. Now, keep in mind, they just laid to rest both Monique and Spencer yesterday afternoon. So I did not see any of the family members there, nor did I see any of the Columbus Police homicide detectives here. I kind of expected to see some of them. I did reach out to the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office, and they did not send a representative here. They said they will officially take over the case once Mr. McKee is transferred over to Franklin County.
Now, Lacey, this is your second day there on site in Rockford, Illinois. Is there any indication what we have heard about the suspect and his whereabouts since almost 2 weeks since these murders happened?
So it's obviously a big talker. A lot of people here in Rockford and in the Chicago area are all talking about it because, they've heard about this national news about this couple, this dentist and his wife, who were brutally murdered inside their home while their young children were in the house unharmed. And so a lot of people are just talking about the fact that they're surprised that he worked in this area or was from the Chicago area. So there's a lot of interest, not just here locally, but, from the Chicago area and beyond.
Lacey Crisp live for us there at the courthouse in Rockford, Illinois. We will have much more from Illinois and Columbus starting on 10 TV News at 4.
Also, in the meantime, make sure you download our free 10 TV News app right there.
So we're not. That obviously didn't show the hearing. I don't know if it in fact is on right now. One of the things that we dwelled on, and I believe so much in this, and I believe Phil does also, is that it's hard to put a percentage on it, but victimology in a homicide investigation tells you so much. It tells you so much about the victim and the questions you might have, as sometimes in the victimology, the answer to who did it is in the victimology, and you find that out. And then sometimes, even when I would do these cases, sometimes you'd say, did you do, and you would say this to your detectives, did you do a DMV check? Oh, what do I got to do that? Boom, they do it. They find out, oh, my God, that car was used in another murder in Brooklyn, So all of those things are done for a reason. And we weren't born with our umbilical cords on, with our NYPD detective or sergeant shields on. We learned this from other people that had been doing this for, in some cases, 25, 30, 40 years. And that's how cops learn from. They learn from other cops, from experience. And it's one of the only professions, maybe not the only, but it's on the job training. How cool is that? To learn this work, this skill, this science, this art of investigation through on the job training. Your thoughts, Phil?
Yeah, Billy, I can't agree with you more. Stuff that happens along the way, you pick up on it, you learn from it. And it reminds me of a case. We had a homicide of a 79-year-old woman in Coney Island, 2007, Surf Avenue. We had done everything to try and solve the case. I even did Crime Stoppers on 2 local TV stations. 6 months had passed, and a sergeant who now passed away, Buddy named great investigator, decided to pick up the case and go do a recanvass. He knocked on the door of a neighbor who we had interviewed numerous times. She was the one that reported to police. She just about pulled him in and said, I saw the thing on TV, and she gave up the perpetrator. We wound up making an arrest. So something as simple as just looking at the case again 6 months down the line and saying, you know what? We talked to this girl. We interviewed her. She was the next door neighbor. She was the first person to call the police, which is standard. You always interview the person that called the police. Let's go talk to her again. Boom, she pulled him in and she gave up the whole case. So a lot of times, simple things like that, a recanvass, can lead to the successful conclusion of a case. And like you said, Billy, it's stuff that maybe isn't done in every case, but perhaps it's done in one case. So now the next detective is going to say, you know what, this case getting kind of cold. Let me do some re-interviews of some of the people that we talked to previously. And a lot of times it could lead to a good conclusion.
Wow, Lou Morocco, thank you so much, Lou. Very much appreciated. Cannon's Corner in 2026. Cornering all the bad guys. Go Cannon. Lou Morocco.
I like that, cornering all the bad guys. That's
very, very much appreciated. We work really hard at this. And actually, Mike and I, and since this case happened, we did at least one show every day. Some shows, some days 2 shows. And as a result of that, we got a lot of brand new subscribers, which we're thrilled with. At KM TX78, thank you for the $1 super sticker. Very much appreciated. You know, folks, we believe in telling it like it is, really, and doing this type of show. Look, this is show business, no matter which way you cut it, but we believe in being honest. And, you know, do we make mistakes? Absolutely. You know, there's pressure to put on shows, and we don't have researchers. You know, we do our own research, and, you know, we use our own tools of research. But what we do have that many other people don't have, we have a very particular set of skills that make us a nightmare. I'm just kidding. That was from Taken for those people that never watched the movie. Anyway, we have investigative skills. We have police skills, and we use them to analyze these cases. And that's what makes us a little bit different than some of the other the YouTubers out there that perhaps are just flying by the seat of their pants. And that I'll always be proud of. And we try to get likewise guests that have the same sort of sets of skills that make them good at their job of investigators. You know, Mike, I think, you know, this case is just, it's very sad in many ways, but this was the kind of case, and I'm sure Phil would agree with me, that we would have loved to have worked when we were on the police department, because real victims, a real case, a real investigation. And what do I mean by that? Are all homicides not real? No, they're all real, but most of homicide is bad guy kills other bad guy, believe it or not. Yeah. And that's the only way I can put it. It's perp A kills perp B. No one's cooperating. No one saw nothing. Okay, close the case. You know, that's why they will blame the police for like, oh, you don't work every case just as I know we do. But when you get zero cooperation, it makes a case like a homicide very, very difficult to solve. Your thoughts, Phil?
Yeah, I think what we do is a lot of times it is exactly what you said, bad guy kills bad guy. However, we're getting justice for the victim and the family. Whether a guy's a bad guy or a good guy, the family suffers the same. A mother, a father, a sister, a brother, whatever it is, a child. So when you have a case like this, you have those two children that are left without parents. You have other family members. And it looks like they were, from what we know, basically pretty innocent and were killed by this maniac. So it makes it a little bit more satisfying to get to a successful conclusion with a case like this. And I think you're right, Bill. You and I talked about this case from the early stages, and we both felt that they had a perp zeroed in right from around the time that video was released. We both felt that way. And again, it just looks like that was the point. That was the turning point in the case where they zeroed in. They went full steam ahead to try and put him in the trick bag, so to speak. And it looks like they've accomplished that with the arrest, the extradition, and we'll see what the future hearings and the arraignment holds.
I just want to play this because this really tells us about the whole case.
Tepe. McKee is Monique Tepe's ex-husband. The two were married for a couple of years, but divorced in June 2017. Investigators Monday released video showing a person walking through an alley near the couple's Wineland Park home. According to investigative records, that person is believed to be McKee. Detectives say the video ties him to a car seen arriving just before the shooting and leaving moments after. That car was later found in Rockford, Illinois, and police confirming McKee is the registered owner. Now, of course, we know that McKee is expected to appear in a Winnebago County, Illinois courtroom tomorrow. Colin.
All right, Kristen, thanks. And of course, we've been working to bring you the latest updates on this story since last month. This all started December 30th when police found the couple at their home on North 4th Street. Police were called for a wellness check when Spencer Tepe did not show up to his Athens dental office. Police also say their two children, a 4-year-old daughter and 17-month-old son, were both found in the home, thankfully physically unharmed. And 10 TV's Lacey Crisp has been covering this tragic killing of Spencer and Monique Tepe from the very beginning. She's on the road right now to Rockford, Illinois, where Michael McKee was arrested and is currently being held. As we've told you, McKee is scheduled to appear there in court tomorrow afternoon. Lacey will be in that courtroom, bringing you the latest on the case. We'll hear from her tonight at 11, and then she'll have the latest updates for us beginning at 6 a.m. on 10 TV and 10 TV Plus.
So one of the things, the reason I like showing that all the time is because it really, you know, we compare sometimes in an elementary way. Sometimes things are elementary. Then you connect the dots. And the dots here were the car that pulled up in the vicinity of the crime scene. The person of interest, who we believe is Michael McKee, then goes back to the car after the murder, and I don't know if they have all of that on video, and leaves. And then the car is tracked to Rockford, Illinois. And I said Illinois. I think it's Illinois. I don't know why I say noise. Some people say Illinois. Anyway, that's great investigation. And again, people that don't understand, doing a video canvas is not the easiest thing in the world. The video just doesn't pop out on you and say, oh, that's it right there. You've got to watch it for hours and hours and hours. Not all of the video of ring cameras, not all of it is motion detectors. Some of them you actually have to watch it for hours. Mike, we're on an hour and 15 minutes. I also recorded a show earlier that I changed the time. It's going to go on at 6, so I don't want this show to run into that show. Your final thoughts, Mike?
That people should just, when we talk about the way things are done, and you and Phil talk about the investigations and how the homicides are conducted, we've used the word victimology, and a couple of people took umbrage to it, thinking we were blaming Monique. But the fact is, when you get a case like this, and somebody isn't, the victim is a good person, not a bad guy who's a coke slinger out on the street, you got to look at the victimology. What in their past may have led to this moment. And people took that a couple times in the chat the other day as victim blaming, but getting to an answer of who possibly could want these two people killed, you have to look at the victimology of both of them. And lo and behold, very quickly, looking at the victimology, the families gave up the fact that there was this person, McKee, who was in Monique's past. So good work, and thank God there's really great homicide detectives in the Columbus Police Department.
Absolutely. Phil, before I get to you, I just want to read one quick from the chat. At Archie 1021, they should check Spencer's phone or Monique's for communication, texts, or calls. Maybe they had exchanged words recently or through a period of time, and the ex finally snapped. At Archie 1021, that is all part of the victimology, which we covered extensively in all the shows we did. We probably mentioned it on where people were getting annoyed at us. But to me, that is one of the most important things in homicide investigation. Phil, your final thoughts.
Final thoughts of this. The word victimology, perhaps somebody took umbrage to it. You're standing over a dead body with an empty notebook. So where do you go? You don't know who the perpetrator is. You start to look into the person, to the victims. That's what we mean by the victimology. And a lot of times what you find out from information gathered about the victims leads you to a motive, and it possibly leads you to a perpetrator. With regard to this case, I think it's far from over. There's going to be a lot of information coming out at those hearings, the extradition and the arraignment hearing. We'll get more information on exactly what they think transpired, and perhaps there's even a motive. Thoughts and prayers go out to these poor two little children. I think one of the reporters said they were unharmed physically. However, mentally is another story. Let's keep those kids in our thoughts and prayers. They're left without parents, and they probably witnessed to some kind of heroic things. And let's hope that they could overcome it and be okay.
100%. Folks, again, I came on the air and I didn't plan this. I thought the hearing was going to be live. I was going to go live to the hearing. The hearing never went live during this time period. Anyway, we're not apologizing. We had a good show anyway. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. And thank you so much for having us catapulting towards 100,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless.
Stay safe and subscribe and thumbs up.
One episode just ain't enough.